All right, welcome back to the BMX Commentator podcast. I'm your host, Rich Eames. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, then welcome back. Episode 23, been a little while. Took most of January off for random, unrelated reasons, but we are back. And episode 23 is going to be a banger because I've got one of my longest standing friends in BMX on the podcast. Former racer, the man behind BMXHype.com, but most importantly, just a top guy, Chris Mapp. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rich. It's been in the making for a little while now, so it's good to finally jump on and have a catch up. And it also feels a little bit strange because obviously for many years I was the man behind the mic with you, right? So obviously with the way my business has grown and BMX Hype and stuff, I'm now happen to be on the other side, which is it takes a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, we've had some fun and games on the microphones over the years. I'm sure we can get into that a little bit later on. But I'm kind of going to go back a little bit, probably further than I actually initially anticipated I was going to go back, because I was doing a bit of research and I went on Google and I put Chris Mapp into Google, and then the sixth result that comes up is Chris Mapp BMX. And the first thing I found was a result from the EBA British Champs at American Adventure. I think it was 92 or 93, and you were racing 5 and under and you came third.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
That's what I found on Google. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to ask Chris this. Does he remember it?
It must have been back to back at American Adventure, because I remember the first year. I think that was my first year of BMX. And I was actually, I don't know why I'm admitting this to the world, but I was too scared to go down the start hill. So I didn't actually race. I watched my brother. And I think my brother got first or second. And then, I remember I pushed Anthony Revell's bike up to the gate, because back then it was when they got the 6 and under class finalists to push, or the 6 and unders to push the bikes up to the gate. So, yeah, I do remember it. I think I was more hyped and excited to go to the adventure playground as opposed to race the BMX track. But wow, yeah, that brings back some memories.
Yeah. I never actually got the opportunity to go to one of those EBA Brits. It was kind of like I was riding at that time, but I wasn't racing. So I kind of only came into it really properly on the racing side of it, like 95, I think it was. But I've been riding since I was like 11 years old. So I missed all that, which is a bit of a shame, because I remember always seeing it in the magazines and it always looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, they were super events. I remember you brought back some memories now. So I remember there was like the Titan team back in the day.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think my brother or my dad at that point, they were running. Do you remember the egg chain rings?
Yes, I do remember the egg chain rings.
Yeah. So yeah, you really took me back there. But yeah, that was I guess the beginning of the BMX adventure as such. I think, my brother and myself, my mum basically got fed up of us tearing around the back garden on our BMX bikes, and she found, I don't know, I think she read it in a magazine or something, because obviously Google and the internet wasn't about back then. And we ended up going to a Tuesday night practice over at Royston Rockets, and the first person we spoke to was Phil and Rich Townsend. And that was when it was run by Phil and Maureen, his wife, who sadly is no longer with us. And it was Richard and his brother David. And from the first time we met them, they spotted that my brother Lawrence had a real talent on the bike. And I think they said, I think it was like 2 weeks later, there was a regional. They said, oh, why don't you come along and do the regional? So, we went along, and I think Lawrence won his first ever race at a regional. And they were like, oh, there's a national in 2 weeks. Why don't you come and do a national? And I think he won the national 2 weeks later. And then I think 3 or 4 months later, we went to the World Championships I think it was in Schindel in 1993 in Holland, when it absolutely hammered it down with rain the whole weekend. And Lawrence got third in the world. So, yeah, literally 6 months after starting the sport. My career, if you want to call it that, didn't take off so quickly. I remember in my first moto at the Worlds, I stopped on the first jump because I had mud in my eye. And my dad was like, what are you doing, mate? And I was like, I couldn't see, so I had to stop. And I think I was literally, by the second motor, I think I was already out. So, but yeah, no. So yeah, God, you've rolled back some memories and some years then. And then, kind of 1993, that was, so I think we might have been the end of 92 season when we started doing a regional, then we maybe done the first national, and then went on to the world. So yeah, that was where it all began.
Yeah, so I think you were kind of in the same boat that I was at, in that you had almost the perfect storm, in that you had a really good track and a really good scene close to where you lived, but then you also had the automatic kind of motivation of having an older brother to push you on. So it's almost like perfect conditions for a kid to get started in BMX.
Yeah, 100%. I think Lawrence was definitely someone that I looked up to growing up. I mean, I always used to be a little bit jealous because he used to get results from, you know, as soon as he started racing, he always got good results. But I think also that's kind of ingrained from your parents as well. And obviously my dad was a very good footballer growing up. You know, he's very well known in the town and around kind of, you know, our county and stuff with his football. He played at a really good level. And he was always, you know, pushing us into sport. So although, you know, predominantly in our youth, BMX was the number one kind of sport, we also, you know, Lawrence played rugby for the county. I played rugby, played a good level of football. I even done trampolining, kind of you name it, kind of sports wise, we done it. I remember, you know, weekends were a bit crazy. If it was a regional weekend, on a Saturday morning, we'd play rugby. Saturday afternoon, we'd play football. And then on a Sunday, we'd drive to Ipswich for a regional. So yeah, we was definitely from kind of sport was ingrained to us from a young age. But yeah, the BMX kind of took the primary focus, I think, from an early age.
Yeah. So when did you kind of become, quote unquote, a serious BMXer then? What was that first season where you went, yeah, this is the sport for us. We're going to absolutely give it everything that we've got?
Well, I think from my dad's point of view and my brother's, it was probably from the offset because, like I said, Lawrence got some results from kind of day one and really pushed on. I think, you know, 93 got World 3, then 94 we went to America and he got World 4. 95 was in Colombia, we didn't go. 96 was in Brighton, and Lawrence made 7 world finals in a row, you know, from the offset. And you know, I was nowhere near as talented in terms of like on a bike and stuff like that. I was more kind of the little toe rag that was always into mischief, you know, running around the campsite and being cheeky and yeah, I guess just kind of expressing myself in a different way, but still enjoying riding my bike. And I wouldn't say I really kind of started to show any true potential till I got to like 11 or 12. I mean, I made national finals and I made Brits finals, but I wasn't kind of, you know, consistently podiuming or, you know, I wasn't on the podium or I was making the finals, but I was, you know, 5th, 6th, 8th. And there would be times that I'd be in the B finals and sometimes, you know, I wouldn't even make it that far. So I wouldn't say, so I'd say probably 11 or 12 was probably when it started to get a bit more serious. So yeah, around that age.
Okay, so with Lawrence being kind of like the shining light, so to speak, and dragging you along with him, how long was it before you got picked up by a team?
Well, Lawrence got picked up when he was like 7 or 8 by Malcolm Webb, MH it was.
Oh yeah, I remember that team.
So, yeah, Malcolm Webb ran it, and Nikki Webb was his daughter, and they had like Scott Burston. I'm trying to think some of the other people. It was like a purple and aqua bluey green kind of MH. So he was on MH for a while. And then my first sponsor actually come from Rich Townsend. So before Rich Townsend ran Pure and owned Pure, he used to work at Custom Riders in Hitchin, which was a local bike shop. I think they're still going, but not in BMX racing. And he ran a kind of shop team out of there, Poor Boy. So that was my first ever sponsor. So Poor Boy was my first sponsor. And I think I was probably around 9 or 10. Like I said, Poor Boy had a good little setup. And yeah, obviously Rich was local to the club. So I don't know if he felt sorry for me or if he just knew that I was, you know, getting a lot of exposure for causing trouble when he just put a shirt on me. So yeah. And then that was kind of from the age of 10 to about 12. And then I guess from 12 onwards was when it kind of, you know, we got picked up by, I think originally the team was GT. So back then it was GT. I think Dale was over in the States, but he was, and Pete Phillips was kind of running a GT team here. And then Liam Phillips and Charlie Phillips was on the GT team. And I think Lawrence transitioned first for a year and I was still on Poor Boy. And then I think I had a really good run and I think I won the nationals at 11 or 12. And then Dale was actually, it was at Bideford National. Dale kind of come up to me and said, you know, if you keep getting these kind of results, you'll be on GT. And I was like, what? And then, yeah, the next year I joined, and then it was GT for a couple of years. Well, I think it was GT. So GT Powerlight. So they had a GT team and a Powerlight. So I'd done GT for a year, then I'd done Powerlight for a year. And then Pete, Philllips, and my dad then started the UK team for Crupi and Stats. And then we went over to Crupi and Stats from the age of kind of 13, 14. I mean, my timelines are off. I don't know the exacts, but I think it was from like 13, 14 for a long time. We were then on Crupi and Stats. And that's, I guess, you know, for a lot of years from the age of kind of 11 through to kind of 16, we traveled the world with the Phillips family, you know, Sharon and Pete, Liam and Charlie. And it was my dad, my mum, me and my brother. And yeah, many trips, many road trips to Europe. It was kind of the days when the Euro rounds, you know, they were still as competitive, but nowhere near as many Brits used to go. I would say, you know, you'd have, I know that like the likes of like Kelvin and Marcus would go and do the junior men, and I think they were like first or second year juniors, so they were doing the round trip. So, you know, we were one of the first people kind of in the younger ages to do that at that time. Well, we was at that time. I know there's probably people, you know, before that, but yeah. So yeah, it was a good time. Lots of good trips. Really good team. We had, you know, the Crupi and Stats team was a proper setup. I don't know if was you about them, Rich. They, you know, Pete done things properly. Didn't do things by half.
We had I was around at that time.
Yeah, we used to have our team tent area was like a proper American style team area. It had the big lorry that, you know, opened up. We had bean bags, gaming machines, and it was well ahead of its time. And yeah, we had a really good team. It was Liam, Charlie, myself, Lawrence, Curtis Maniton, Marcus Bloomfield, Tom Palmer. You know, we had a real strong team, and yeah, the banter and the atmosphere within the area was great. So yeah, some good memories.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about like the influence of having Liam and Marcus Bloomfield on your team. What did you get from them in terms of like education on racing? How did they help you to progress?
Well, it's a strange one, really, because obviously Liam's like, you know, gone on to do incredible things with his career, you know, as a racer, but then also as a coach. But Liam was like 4 years younger than me. So if anything, I was probably trying to drag him in to cause trouble with me. And, you know, he was but Liam was quite quiet as a when he was younger. He was quite quiet, quite shy, but, you know, obviously very talented on the bike. And
yeah.
Whereas Bloomy was older. So I think Bloomy was probably 4 or 5 years older than me. So when I was started to get half decent, he was kind of early years, junior men and stuff. And, you know, I was quite mouthy and stuff. So Bloomy was quite straight with me, you know. He used to rip me if I didn't pedal to the line, and he'd always, like, you know, poke me and prod me and try and get a reaction. But no, I mean, all in all, you know, I've had a really good relationship with Marcus Hanley, and we're very lucky to know them for many years. And, you know, both of them have gone on to do great things within the sport. So yeah, when you look back, what did I learn from them? To be honest, I honestly can't remember. I think Marcus was, you know, quite a bit older than me, but you know, they'd always help me out on a race day with hints and tips and stuff like that. But Liam was obviously a lot younger than me, so yeah.
So kind of moving on from that, then the age group that you were in, who was in with you in that age group? Who were your rivals? Who were you racing against on a regular basis?
I think over a period of time, eventually the rival was Warren Bancroft, or obviously Wazza.
Yeah, so that's the one I've got written down.
Yeah, so people that don't know Wazza, he was like, I guess probably who you would call nowadays like a Kai White, like unbelievable bike skills. Track speed was just ridiculous. And yeah, had many good battles with Warren. But with, you know, it goes, you know, it's quite a deep category. So we used to have Eddie Carr. Do you remember Eddie Carr?
I remember Eddie Carr, yeah. When he was on Pashley.
Yeah, Pashley, yeah. So Eddie Carr, he was one that was good. When we were younger, there was a guy called Tony Radford. He was really good as well. So yeah, we had some really good category and many battles, but I think the main one I'd say is Warren. But it was a weird one because Warren was like my best friend, and also like my partner in crime as such, you know, because I guess, you know, back then every national you had a campsite and you camped. You know, it wasn't as serious. Obviously, it was serious on race day and stuff, but it was a lot more relaxed in the sense of, you know, everyone would be playing football, everyone would be having barbecues, everyone would be having a drink. It was much more of like a festival vibe as opposed to, you know, since 2008 when the Olympics got introduced. Obviously, it got streamlined and become a lot more professional. But yeah, so Warren was my biggest rival on the track, but best mate off.
Phenomenal. It's nice that you had that relationship as well. And I've always said that Warren was that kid who should have been like a BMX superstar first, if you know what I mean. I almost feel like he never really got what he deserved, but I think his life just went in a slightly different direction. I think he was more into his football, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a top guy. He's a top guy, and I've still got a really good relationship with him now. He comes down with his fiance and children, and you know, he meets me at nationals if we're going to nationals up in Manchester or whatever. So still really good friends. But yeah, he had quite a tough upbringing. You know, he's from Crewe. His mum and dad split. He was from a single parent family. I think he's got like 2, 3, 4 sisters. So his mum couldn't always make it to the races. His granddad used to take him to the races, and you know, they wasn't blessed with money. He won't mind me sharing that. So I think it was, you know, and I don't know if you've been to Crewe, but there's many distractions. And
absolutely.
I think if Warren was born 5 years later when Sinead was really on it, I think it could have been a really different story, because obviously Sinead was from Crewe, and they, you know, I think Warren was already kind of drifting off by that point. So if he'd been born a little bit later, I think in his prime he probably would have buddied up with Sinead, and they probably would have really trained together, and it might have been a different. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's all with buts and maybes, right?
Absolutely, but yeah, he was always a pleasure to watch, Warren. Always.
Yeah. Unless you're in front of him going round the last corner, then you're waiting for him to come past you.
Yeah. So moving on from that, then your kind of Euros/World career. I seem to remember you definitely picking up Euro plates. Did you pick up any Euro wins?
Yes. So yeah, I think so. I won 2 European Championships. Funnily enough, the only one everyone ever remembers is the cruiser one, but I actually won it on 20-inch first. So I just want to put that out there. I won the European Championships in Klatovy in Czech Republic. But I mean, if I go back from that, so from the age of 12 to 16, I think I made every European final. So I've had every European plate apart from 7 and 8. So I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But back then it was a little bit different, Rich, because obviously cruiser was, you know, I used to race cruiser around 20 inches. One thing my dad always instilled in us was it wasn't like now where you could go to the track 6 weeks in advance and practice on the track. It was turn up, you do 4 laps, and then you go straight into a race. So it was always like, right, we're going to race cruiser because you'll get 4 or 5 more laps, or if you go later in the competition, it'll be 7 or 8 if you get to the final. So then by the time you get to your 20-inch day, a day or 2 later, you know the track, you know the race lines. And my dad was always quite hot on that. The amount of times he made my brother and I race cruiser when we probably didn't really want to, but I think it did stand us in good stead to, you know that corner where you didn't cover your line in a moto, or that jump that maybe is more lippy on the inside than the outside, or whatever, you know, the little 1% that all add up. So yeah, but no, the Euro, going back to it, the Euro, so from the age of 12 to I guess to kind of 22, 23, when I kind of stopped, I made pretty much every European final. But yeah, the 2 that stand out was Klatovy in Czech Republic. So that was 17 to 24 boys. It was my first year, 17 boys. I won't go into the story too much, but if you ask Marco Della Sola and Andy Shaw, after I won the final, I come back to my room and there was a note on my room that said, "You got in at 5 a.m. How the hell have you managed to do that?" And a quick story, just going off track a little bit. I was 17, like I said, maybe a little bit rogue, and ended up going out with them guys and having a few drinks. And when I was riding through the pens in the morning, they had the old school metal pens. Do you remember them, like the metal ones? I think they've still got some at some tracks.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was rushing through to get like my first lap of practice, and I smashed my peak off the metal pen, and it cracked in half. And it was the first race ever that my dad hadn't been to, because my mum and dad had not long split up. My mum took me. We didn't have any money, so I had to take my peak off. So I actually won my first European title with a bullet helmet. How embarrassing.
Could there be anything that would be any more Chris Mapp than you doing that, apart
Oh,
from
I
you going
know,
out till
right?
5 a.m.?
You know what? When I think back on it, it really does make me cringe because I couldn't be further from that person anymore. But I think it all makes up, you know, the person that you become, right? So, but yeah, no, that it was a good event. It was actually raining so hard, and Kelvin Beatty was there, and I think we were sharing a tent with him or something, and I was going up for the final, and I remember him like holding an umbrella over me and all of that stuff, and I think I had like first or second pick, and he was like, "What lane are you going to go in?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to pick lane 6," and he was like, "Mate, you can't pick lane 6 on this track. You've got like second pick, go lane 1 or 2." I was like, "Listen, my gates are not great. I feel confident if I get a good gate, I'm going to get out and get over. And if I don't, I'm just going to try and kind of crank it and then get around the outside kind of thing." And I got an absolute mint gate. I just hole shotted and just literally got over. And I think like 2 or 3 of them kind of got caught up behind me, and then I just got out in front. And yeah, I just remember coming around the last corner and my legs were absolutely in bits. And I think, embarrassingly, I think I pumped the whole of the last straight, and I could feel this 6-foot German guy breathing down my neck. I think if the track was like 2 meters longer, I probably would have lost. But yeah, no, some good memories. And then obviously to then come back to Cheddar 4 years later and do it on home turf in front of the home crowd. Although it was on cruiser, it was an incredible lap. I think I was in lane 6 again, funnily enough. But do you remember the old school first corner in Cheddar?
Yeah.
It was like a bank, and I got an okay gate, but there was too many people on the inside. And I just remember I watched the video back, and I think I looked over to the inside 3 or 4 times to see what was going on. And then I just took a little break and dived up the inside, went into second, come out, and then I just went into first into the second corner, and then I managed to hold it down to the line. So yeah, that was a good one. And then I was feeling super pumped for the next day on 20-inch, and hit the gate in practice and went over and chipped my shoulder and didn't get to race. So yeah, but no, they were good memories.
Yeah. Was there ever kind of, this is kind of normally one of my 3 last questions, but I'm going to ask it now. Is there ever a race where you'd really like to have a do-over and just do it all again, either for the thrill of winning or just going, that's the race that got away, I really need to do that one again?
Yeah. I think there's always if buts and maybes, right? You always come off the track and think, I could have done that, or I could have done this. One that stands out for me was my world final. I was 16 boys. At that time, some of the riders, you probably know a few of them. So I had Ivo van der Putten, Arnold Dubois, Brian Kirkham, Emilio Falla. They were all in my category. 16 boys, and I was really firing. I think I got European number 2 in Geneva. I was winning the final, and I got overtook down the second straight. So I got European 2, and then went to the Worlds in Argentina, and the track was absolutely horrific. I think there's about 8 corners and 9 straight. It was just, it was nuts. Anyway, I felt really good, was getting through the rounds, doing really well. And then in the semi, I got a really good gate, and I was in second, and I followed it all the way around in second behind Brian Kirkham.
Yeah.
And then I remember I just was like, for anyone listening that has never seen me race when I was younger, I wasn't the most talented rider. In actual fact, I was probably one of the least talented riders, but I can race, if that makes sense. So if you watch me in practice, you would watch me and think, bloody hell, he's not going well, or I don't have to worry about him. But then if you lock me on the gate with 7 other blokes, I think, my mental game and the mental side of it, I was really strong in it. And I was never trained in it. I was never, never had any, outside help with that kind of thing. But I think I was just, like you said, I think it might have been like having an older brother that was always really good and wanting to kind of prove myself and stuff.
Yeah.
So, if I think about Warren that we was talking about earlier, like I said, I don't think he made any European finals or world finals, which is insane.
It is insane.
His talent compared to my talent was, opposite ends of the spectrum. So I think, that mentality piece for me was a big kind of plus that kind of maybe raised my game. And I think the further we got on into competitions, like whether it was the 8s, quarters, semis, the more I'd start believing in myself and start thinking, oh God, I'm in with a chance here. So got to the final. I've got a 3rd or 4th pick, and I think lane 2 was open, and I think it was Brian Kirkham or someone in lane 1. And I just remember thinking, I've just got to go early. I've just got to get out. And I genuinely, hand on my heart, I thought I was going to win the Worlds. Like I said, I had a really good result in the Euros. Everything was going well that season, and I thought I was going to be world champion. And I went too early, and I hit the gate and went over the gate. Yeah.
Oh,
so if there was one race that I could rerun, it would probably be that one. It was the year when Mario Soto won Elite. Obviously, God bless him, is no longer with us.
Yeah, he's no longer with us either.
But he was absolutely rapid. But yeah, that was probably the one that I would go back and race again if I could.
Okay. So that kind of brings me on to that. I've got a little point here that says retirement / first time / second time. So
/ fourth.
So when did you step away from BMX then as a quote unquote serious thing? When did you get to that point where you went, right, I need to kind of just step away with was it like a conscious decision? Did you just drift off in other directions? How did that play out?
Yeah, well, there's a few contributing factors, Rich, and I'll touch on them lightly, but I won't go into them too deep. It's another conversation for another time. But I think the sport was changing around the 2008 games, right? We had it was like the top pool of riders in Elite at the time. And I would say I was probably in the secondary group just below that. So you had obviously Liam Philllips, Marcus Bloomfield, my brother, and then Kelvin. Yeah. And the Olympics had just been introduced. I wasn't in that category with them for, I might have thought I could have gone to the games, but I mean, my commitment, my behaviors and decisions that I was making just weren't aligning with someone that, wanted to be in a professional athlete and go to the games. Right. So with the way that it was all handled in 2008, and obviously my brother was at the trial in Geneva where I don't know if people know this story, but again, I won't go into too much detail because it get political, but long story short, they had a race off. So it was the top 4 riders, Marcus, Liam, Kelvin and Bloomy, and whoever won that race in Geneva went to 2008 games. And then they went over there I can't remember the story inside out, but they went over there first time, and then someone got injured, so they had to fly back, and then they had to go back out there again. Then it was raining. Anything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Yeah, I just don't think it was handled very well by the association. And at this time, you got to think I'd shared a team tent with Marcus and Liam for many years, and they were really good friends of mine. And then Lawrence was my brother, and then Kelvin at the time was like from when we were younger, he was the #1 elite in the UK that was pushing himself abroad to go to European trips and stuff like that. And a lot of the times he would, we went on mini trips where he jumped in the van with us and was in the same hotel. So spent a lot of time with Kelvin as well. And then all of a sudden, the whole of UK BMX is kind of at each other's throats about who should be going to the games. And the way it just all played out, although I wasn't kind of directly, one of the 4 that was involved, obviously Lawrence was. And then obviously I knew Marcus and Liam for a long time and knew Kelvin for a long time. And it just created a real big divide. And I think Lawrence really lost love for it at that point. I think he thought, like he was settled. He had he was just about to get married. He had a stepson and he needed to take care of his family. So I think that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for him. I think he might have raced for 6 months afterwards, but then he kind of drifted out. And I think from that point, it then all started to change because I then become a young adult. And obviously my dad was still going to races. So I think I carried on for a few years because it was the connection that I had with my dad, and he would go to the races because obviously he used to work the start hill and stuff like that.
I remember that.
And then I guess kind of life just takes over. I had my daughter, Shannon, who is now 20, believe it or not. My ex-partner fell pregnant when I was 17. And I guess I always had, because I started commentating at 15, 16 as well. Do you remember? I had an injury. Yeah. I had a broken wrist and we went to a national and I think the commentator couldn't make it or something happened. And Ewan Goodman said to me, "Oh, do you want to do it? You'll be all right." And I was like, "Mate, I'm like 15 years old. I don't know what I'm doing." It was Tredegar in Wales. Tredegar.
Yes. That one national where it pissed it down with rain.
That was it. That was my first ever commentary. So I started doing
remember that day.
Yeah. So I started doing the commentary and then kind of I was at a crossroad in my career. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself and stuff like that. And then I was still kind of racing a little bit and all that stuff. And then I really got into the commentary. I loved it. I absolutely loved it for a period of time. You know, for a young lad that, you know, didn't have a job at the time because I was about to start college and stuff like that, it really helped financially for me, and also like having a little child on the way. So to combine the two things you love, obviously I know that you can relate to this, but to combine the two things you love and get paid for it, it was like win-win for me. So obviously then I went down the commentary route for, well, I mean, how long did I commentate for? I can't remember. Was it like 7-8 years?
Remember. Something like that. Yeah. I know we did Supercrosses together at Manchester, didn't
we? I know. So yeah, done the Supercross at Manchester. I think I'd done a few Euro rounds back in the day, obviously done all the nationals and the Brits and stuff like that. So I think that was the point where I just kind of, I guess the natural talent that I had and that kind of mentality that we spoke about wasn't backed up with the graft and the hard work. And, you know, I was started to get beat by people that maybe I thought I shouldn't have been getting beat by. And the ego kind of took over a little bit. And I thought, you know what, I just kind of stopped racing and kind of focused on the commentary. So,
yeah.
I can't remember the exact age.
No, I can't. But I know it was always good fun. The next thing I've got written down is Birmingham Worlds 2012. There's a story there for sure.
Yeah. Which version do you want?
Oh, dear. I just remember you going down that third straight, going over the bars, and just thinking, "Oh my God, Chris, please get up." That was one of the worst crashes I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. So that was one of the races where going out the night before didn't come off. So I think what rather than giving you the comical joke side of things, I'll give you the kind of more serious and takeaway from it. So at that point in my life, 2012, that was 12 years ago. So I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
And I'd been a floor layer for 5 years. So we had the contract with Travelodge Hotels. We'd do all of the refits, all of the new builds, all of that jazz. Was earning really good money. But obviously, being a floor layer, you know, it's quite hard graft, physical, you know, back, knees, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I always knew that I had more to give than that. You know, I wasn't really I enjoyed the money. I didn't enjoy the work. And I was away from home a lot as well, which you know, has its ups and downs when you got, you know, by this point I had Louis, my son as well, who's now 16. So he was 4 at the time then. And then basically when the Worlds got announced in Birmingham, my brother and I were both like, mate, we can't not do that. That's unreal. Like, let's do it. The last time the Worlds were in the UK was it 1996? It was, wasn't it?
96, yeah.
So that's 16 years. And obviously that was our 4th World Championships in 96. And we were like, it's on our doorstep. Like, let's just get a bike. Let's get a kit. 6 months hard graft. Let's do it. We're on it. And we was in 25-29 category. So again, I done the old trick of, well, may as well double entry, 20-inch and cruiser. And I think there was quite a few people that come back. So it was myself, my brother, Warren Bancroft come back, Sean Fry come back. There was loads of people in that category that thought, they've obviously had that same idea as us. So, 20-inch didn't go so well. I done all right, got some good results. I think I got 5th in the quarter and went out. But Lawrence done really well. I think he got 4th in the world, Lawrence got. So he done really well. And the next day we had cruiser, and then I went out the night before, got in late, got up early, went to race, and then I think it was the quarterfinal. I come out of the second corner and I had so much speed. I don't know where that speed come from. And I just remember it was like a rhythm section, wasn't it, Rich?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Straight. And I just forgot what manual I was doing, or I think I over manualed one and like manualed an extra one. And before you know it, I was just couldn't keep up with, you know, where I was. My brain obviously wasn't, you know, functioning properly. And then, over the bars, landed on my back. And then, I don't think many people know, but I was in a wheelchair for 8-10 weeks after that. I had a blood clot, quite a big blood clot on the bottom of my spine. And I mean, at first they were really worried. I was in hospital for like 4 or 5 nights in Birmingham. And I think they were worried, like, with my movements and stuff like that. Thank God, luckily, it wasn't as serious as what they first thought. And I made a full recovery. And then it was kind of, had a lot of time to reflect. And I always feel like when you look back at, you know, your life and stuff like that, I mean, I know I'm still not that old, but there's always a key moment that changes your trajectory. And I look back at that and I feel like that was it. Because after kind of making a full recovery, I tried to go back to work and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't, you know, the physical demands on my body just couldn't do it. So my friend was like, oh, like, I've got a sales job. Why don't you'd be great in sales? Like, you're good at chatting to people. And by this time, you know, I'd done all my commentary. I was, you know, BMX, naturally you become sociable, you meet people from all different walks of life, all of that jazz. So I fell into a sales role. And then after doing that for about 6 months, someone else I knew said, why don't you work in recruitment? And I was like, what's recruitment? And they were like, mate, you would be incredible at recruitment. Like, and basically they told me what it was about. Started applying for a few jobs, and then I got a job in central London, and I went into central London as a trainee recruitment consultant. And then, yeah, my whole life changed from the moment I stepped foot in that door, which I was 27 years old, started in recruitment, and then, you know, worked my way up from a trainee recruitment consultant. And within 3.5 years, I was like a regional director and had multiple offices under me, you know, with revenues in, you know, 11 million pounds. And then, you know, I'm sure we're going to touch on my business later on, but then, you know, I went on to set up my own business, which has been going for 6 years now. So like I said, going back to that crash and that injury, you know, a lot of people could have, you know, dwelled on the injury and, you know, kind of got down about it and, you know, really taken a turn for the worse. But I think it kind of shut that door for me and opened up a new opportunity. And I've just run with it ever since, really.
Yeah, it's bizarre that I never expected you to say when you first went into like that particular profession, what is recruitment? Knowing what I know about you now and knowing how you run your business, it's like it's almost something that I didn't expect to come out of your mouth. But
yeah, I didn't have a clue, Rich. Did not have a clue. I thought people were still advertising jobs because I'd only ever had one job since school. I was a floor layer. I didn't know, you know, I was always good with like making money. Like when I was a kid at school, I used to sell sweets and make a little bit of markup on it. And, you know, it's always been like a bit of a, you know, of a way to make money and stuff. But yeah, then when I got into recruitment, I just really found kind of my calling.
Yeah. So what did BMX teach you about business then? What has BMX given you that you've taken into your business career?
That's a good question. I think it's taught me a lot. BMX has really taught me a lot. And actually, when I think about, you know, if I think about my life and things that have happened throughout my life, BMX has been the one constant that has given me joy. Obviously, you have your ups and downs when you're a racer and stuff like that. But on the whole, you think about the trips, the connections, the relationships, you know, the environment, everything about it has been a real positive. When I think about the kind of some key core skills that have transferred from BMX into recruitment, recruitment's one of them jobs where essentially you get out what you put in, right? You know, and I think BMX is very similar. It's a single sport mentality. Yes, you're a part of a team or whatever, but once you lock that wheel on the gate, it's you and 7 other blokes or ladies, you know, going for that line. So I think that kind of single mindset to drive yourself and ultimately be responsible for the outcome. So I think that was really well aligned. I think also the resilience that you get because you don't win every race. Similar in recruitment, you know, essentially what we do is we sell human beings, and that sounds really weird, but our products are human beings, right? And human beings are not like a, you know, a mobile phone or a pair of trainers that if they're faulty, you send them back. They've got their own brain, their own legs, you know, they don't always do what they say they're going to do. So I think, you know, that definitely from like that resilience, because being let down in recruitment, you know, how you can get back on the horse and go again. So definitely resilience, determination. And I think, you know, that ability to be able to connect with people and build relationships, you know, from the age of 5 years old, you know, been lucky. We're very, very lucky that my parents were in a position to be able to take us to pretty much all of the races. You know, we've been to Argentina, Australia, America, Canada, all over Europe, you know, from BMX. So to meet all different people from all walks of life and be able to relate to them, you know, and BMX again is a community where you got people that are really scrimping and scraping to get to a race. And then you got people that got loads of money that are in, you know, the best hotels or the best camper vans. So, you know, that ability to be able to build rapport, find connection and relate to people. I think that is, you can't buy that. Money can't buy that.
Yeah. Yeah. The transition then to working for yourself, obviously you worked for like a big organization for a few years, then you left there, and then you had like an interim job, if I remember correctly, before you started on your own. Give us a little bit of timeline on that, because I think it's quite interesting, because if I remember correctly, that interim job didn't really suit you at all, and you were just waiting it out so you could do something connected to what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I left. So basically, I was at the large corporate for 4 years in total, I think it was. And I kind of knew my time was done there and I wanted out. So at this time, my relationship with my ex-partner had broken down, the mother of my 2 children. And I was living on my own and was kind of, again, at a bit of a crossroad in terms of what I wanted to do next. And I was actually, at the time, I was dating Gemma, who is now my fiance.
Yeah.
And she was about a year in of starting her own recruitment agency. So we're dating. She'd started her own recruitment agency, had been doing it for about a year. And then I just started a new job as a national sales director. And we were dating and stuff, and obviously we were talking about like the future and what that looks like. And I was like, I'm going to start my own business. I know I wanted to start my own business, wasn't sure what to do. And I said to her, I know what I'm going to do property development. I'm going to buy a few homes. I'm going to, you know, my mum's done that, you know, HMOs and all that stuff. So I thought, right, I'm going to get into this line of work. And then Gemma was just like, Chris, like, you're one of the best recruiters I've ever worked with. Like, why are you going to go and do something that you have zero experience in when you've got all of that experience and kind of talent? Why would you not start your own recruitment agency? And it was like a light bulb. I was like, yeah, you got a point, actually. What am I thinking? So Gemma helped me start my own business. So I started my own business, and at the time, this was 6 years ago. It's more of a lifestyle business. Just myself making had some really loyal clients that were repeat customers. And then me and Gemma, obviously, our relationship grew over the next 2 years, and I kept on saying to her, you know, why don't you come and join me? Why don't you come and join me? And then one day she was like, look, if you're serious about it, then let's talk about it. Otherwise, basically, shut up. And then we had a proper conversation, and it was like over COVID in 2020. And she sold her shares in a business and had a really amicable split with her previous business partner. And then, yeah, joined me in 2020. And then, yeah, the rest is history. So the last 4 years have been an incredible journey, and yeah, got some really big plans for the future.
Yeah. Does business give you the buzz that BMX used to?
I don't think anything compares to the buzz of BMX. Anything. And I think one of the subjects, which is probably a separate podcast in itself, is the management of expectations for a young BMX racer and what the future looks like. And I think there's a real problem, not just in BMX, but especially in football with the academies. And when you don't make it, what happens next?
Yeah, I agree.
And again, that's a whole different topic that maybe we can talk about another day. But, you know, I don't think anyone ever really prepared me for that. I thought I was going to be a professional BMX racer. I mean, the reality is I'm living in cloud cuckoo because, like I said, my behaviors and training didn't nowhere near reflect kind of that lifestyle. And then, you know, I did have, you know, some tough times, Rich, over the years. You probably saw me a few times when you probably thought, I hope he's all right. I went through some real tough times with, you know, alcohol and substance abuse and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it was to do with my parents splitting up early, but also that BMX, that kind of buzz you get, even when you're not just winning, but even, you know, when you're training with your mates, or you're making it through that semi-final and you've just gone from 5th to 4th in the last corner, you know, that buzz, you just can't compare to it. You really can't compare to it. So yeah, I would say, yes, you know, it's a different kind of buzz and adrenaline, but I wouldn't say it's the same as BMX. And actually, kind of as you grow as you grow the business and you get more people and you have more overheads and you have more responsibility, you know, it's not just me anymore. I've got, you know, not me, but because Gemma is 50% shareholder, so Gemma and I are private owners, but you have more responsibility. You're responsible for other people's livelihoods, and you know, a lot of our team have got 2-3 children and husbands and mortgages and holidays and, you know, their own responsibilities. So it's a different kind of buzz. So, but yeah, I mean, I still really enjoy my job. It's very different to when I first started, but also, you know, going to meet a new client, or, you know, before we spoke before I got on air about my day to day, and we've had three clients that have come back to us today with a multiple, you know, multiple roles, which is a financial value to the business. I'm buzzing. But also on the flip side of that, the reality is, Rich, it was 7 o'clock and we were due on here at 8. And I was like, shit, I need to leave the office because it's 7 o'clock. I've got a podcast at 8 with Rich. I haven't had dinner. I'm not seeing Gemma, my fiance. Like, it's the reality, right? So yeah, it's difficult. I feel like in the world we live in today, everyone gets to see the kind of social reel of the top of the mountain, but a lot of people don't see the reality of the day to day of what goes behind the scenes, whether that's in business, whether that's in BMX, whether that's football, whatever sport or whatever kind of area of professionalism people are in. You only get to see the top of the mountain. You don't ever see, you know, the time a customer doesn't pay, or the time you try to do that squat and you're 50 kg off a personal best and you can't do it, or, you know, the injuries people go through, or having to lay someone off because they're not quite hitting their performance targets, or whatever it might be. You don't ever get to see that side of it. You only get to see like that top of the mountain. So definitely kind of transferable buzzes, but I wouldn't say any of them are the same as that kind of adrenaline kick you get when you're on the bike.
Okay. And then just before we go to like the kind of wrap up questions, I do want to touch on bmxhype.com and your team ownership. How's that been for you?
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. So I think we're in our 12th season now.
Really, that long?
Yeah. It started just as an idea with Sean and I. I remember we wasn't sure what to call it. We was going to call it Lane 8, and then we decided with BMX Hype. So,
I'm glad you didn't call it Lane 8. Gee whiz.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's shocking.
Well, we could have signed Neek because obviously, you know, he's the Lane 8 king. But
well.
No, so yeah, BMX Hype. Yeah, just started with an idea, and then at the time we had some really good sponsors like Carol Gosling supported us, Edwards Bike Shop supported us quite heavily in the early years, and also my dad, his business supported us, and lots of other sponsors along the way. But we had a really good team. We had obviously we've had the likes of Tian Isidore, Ryan and Alex Brooks were obviously on our team before they started their own lab racing. Got a really good relationship with Ian and them guys. They're obviously doing their own thing and doing it really well at the moment. Alessi Ty, my brother, me, Sean, you know, and then obviously more Reese. So then obviously I stepped away, Sean took it over, and he had the likes of Will Goo, Josh Barsby, and some other guys, you know, and kept it going. And then Harry Donald obviously was a hung cut rider and joined Sean at BMX Hype. And then Sean obviously had his last race at the Brits in Leicester. Well, it was meant to be his last race. He's obviously back now. And then my children just started getting into it, obviously a little bit later than normal. And Sean was kind of looking to step back. And I just said, look, it'd be such a shame to kind of let it go. And yeah, just kind of seamlessly transitioned back to me. And then we kind of quite like Will Good, Josh Barsby and Josh Abbott, they were like getting a bit older. So they were kind of moving out of the sport again. So it was quite a good time for me to step back in and refresh and re-energize it and go again. And then obviously last two seasons, we've had a really good season with, you know, obviously Harry's got a world plate and the European plate. Jess got a world and European plate. Little Joey got British champion. So yeah, it's been really good. Obviously it's difficult because the riders are young and to manage expectations. And obviously the parents are obviously spending a lot of money. So you're juggling a lot of plates and spinning a lot of plates and managing a lot of emotions. But I think, you know, the one thing that I have really, firstly, I'm privileged enough to be able to finance and run the team. So I'm lucky
Yeah.
enough to be able to do that. But I think for me, it's also about giving back to the sport that's given me so much. So, I mean, yeah, when I talk to Gemma about the financials that I've invested in the last 2 years, it's not the best conversation over dinner, let's put it that way. But no, to be able to give back to the sport and support some riders that are up and coming has been, yeah, it's been a real privilege to watch their progression and see the result that they've been getting. And, you know, I do think that one day when whatever happens in my future with my business, I do think some form of sporting role will be something that I step into next, whether that's in BMX or football or, you know, but high level sport is something that I'm very passionate about. So yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
Brilliant.
something that I've started to take more seriously now that I've realized all of the things that I did wrong. And you look back and you think, if I had someone to put their arm around me at that time, it could have been a very different outcome. So, and I'm not just talking about BMX because, you know, I'm talking about football as well. You know, a few of my friends have made it to be professional footballers and had a really good living and stuff like that, but the kind of right time, right place. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Certainly, like you say, quite the journey. So, but as we get to the end of it, Chris, I kind of always try and ask a few quick fire questions. I've asked you the one about the do-over race, so I'm going to take that one out of it. But the first one, I don't know if you've heard this on previous episodes, is about the Frankenstein BMXer. So you've got the ability to create the ultimate BMXer. You can have the strength of one rider. You can have the mental skills of another rider. You can have the social media skills of somebody else and the bike handling skills of somebody. So you've got strength, physical strength, mental strength, social media savviness, and bike skills. So you take that from different people or the same person or whoever it might be, and you make the ultimate BMXer. Who are the four people you're choosing for those categories?
Wow. That's a really tough one, Rich. Okay, I'm going to go with the guys first. So strength, I would probably go first straight pull with Neek.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
The mental game, I don't think there's anyone better than Joris. I think just the way he turns it on at any given time and the longevity that he's had and results that go with it were incredible.
Yeah.
Social media, I know this is crazy because it might sound crazy to you, but I'm not really much of a social media guy, you know. Obviously, I don't have any personal accounts.
Right.
I hop on every 2 or 3 days to BMX Hype, but in between them 2 and 3 days, I actually delete the app because it's a distraction when I'm at work. I just end up flicking on it and falling out in 20 minutes is gone. So in terms of social media, I'm going to have to go with Barry because, you know, obviously Barry does it incredibly well. And, you know, the way that he's carved out a career and some of the commercial deals that he's got off the back of it is to be admired. For someone that, you know, is now I don't know if he's in mid to late 30s, but he's in the Masters.
37 or 38, yeah,
still doing it and making a good living. There's a lot to be learned from him. So I think I'd go with that. And then bike skills, I mean, you can't really look past Kai, right? Kai's bike skills are just unbelievable. Like, yeah, he's, you know, if you watch some of them last straight videos over a period of time, there's not many out there that can ride a bike like him.
No, that's very true.
So I'd probably go with them 4.
Okay. They've all been common picks as well, especially Barry.
Are they? Yeah. From a women's perspective, strength, I'd probably have to go with Beth.
Yeah.
Mental, I'll probably go with Mariana because of the longevity and the results. Social media, again, that's a difficult one really because I'm not too up to speed with that. So yeah. I mean, I follow Caroline Buchanan. I think she's pretty cool. She's got a pretty cool social media presence.
Yeah, she has.
Yeah. And then bike skills. Oh, God, I feel like I'm well out the loop now. Bike skills.
Hey, you can pick anybody. You can pick somebody from back in the day if you want, Chris.
Oh, God, now you're getting me going. But, there you go then. Natasha Williams.
Wow, yeah.
she was unreal on a bike, mate. I remember Valley Worlds in France. They had the steepest second straight ever, and all the girls practicing were sitting on the jumps, and she just like literally sent it like first or second lap, so she could properly send a jump. So I'll go with Natasha.
Right, brilliant, great shouts there,
throwback.
Chris. Yeah, absolute throwback. And then kind of like the final question, well, not the final question, probably the penultimate question is, what are the three? I'm going to steal this one from the High Performance podcast. I'm going to modify it a little bit. If anybody listens to the High Performance podcast, they've heard this question before.
Jake and Damien.
Jake and Damien. What are the three non-negotiable traits of a top BMX racer? In your opinion?
Three non-negotiable traits. Okay. That's a really good question, Rich. So obviously I have not been what you would call like a high performance BMX racer for a long time. So I'm probably going to relate them more to business, but I think they're transferable across both.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is around punctuality and doing what you say you're going to do. I think that's an absolutely non-negotiable, whether it's BMX, whether it's business, or whether it's just life in general, is about management of expectations and just doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because if you can do that, you're already ahead of 95% of the population, because in today's day and age, a lot of people don't do what they say they're going to do. So I'd say punctuality and doing what you say you're going to do. I say that's the first thing. The second thing is about, for me, is about having, we're talking about non-negotiables now, aren't we? So doing the things that you don't want to do, but consistently when no one's watching.
Yeah. I suppose you could sum that up as discipline.
Discipline, yep. And then the third one is, to be a top level BMXer right now, is the reality of it is very few people make a hell of a lot of money out of this.
Yeah.
So if you don't live, sleep, breathe, eat it 101%, you can guarantee there'll be another 50 to 100 people that will be. And you will get left behind over a period of time, because every single little decision you make will add up and be a trajectory to success or not getting the results you want. So if you're in the game for money, get out of it. And you have to really, 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 truly love it. I would say that's the reality, really.
Brilliant. Do you know what, Chris? That is actually a really good place to leave it, I think. I think that's the perfect question to end it on. So yeah, I know it's taken us a while to get this done, but it's been so worth it. It's been so absolutely worth it. I think we could probably get another 2 or 3 podcasts out of some of the stuff that we've discussed already.
100%.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get you on for a part 2, I think, at some point. But
yeah, I think there's a lot of subjects in BMX that maybe a lot of people talk about that maybe haven't got the longevity in the sport to understand where it's come from and to where it is today, and kind of how far it has come, but also the areas that need improving. And I think that, it's a sport that I'm so passionate about. I still love it. I went to America Worlds last year. None of my kids went.
Yeah.
I love it that much, and I am really passionate about it. And I just think that they're, like everything, there's always room for improvement, and the sport's ever evolving, so you can't stand still. And I think the UK is definitely in a much better place than it has been in terms of the depth and how we move it forward. But I think we've all got a lot of work to do, and you can't just always consistently point the finger at BC. And you look at the infrastructures that are in place now to take people from a young age to that elite level. We got to look at from the guys at the top all the way to the people at the bottom that are, running these club races, that are running these regional races, national races, and Europeans, and so on and so forth. It's such a big project to keep progressing the sport within the UK. And I think that, like I said, we've come so far, but I still think that we've got a lot to do. And I feel like BMX is a sport where because you've got access to it so easily, it's at the end of your
Yeah.
fingertips. You can get to a regional, national, British champs. You can meet Beth Shrever, the gold medalist, or Kai, the silver medalist, or Ross on the GB team at any given race. You know, you can't just start playing football tomorrow and meet Ronaldo. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different kettle of fish. So I think because you get that exposure to the sport so quickly and instantly, everyone starts forming opinions so quick. And I think that actually, you know, the sport's moving in the right direction. If everyone could just kind of see other people's opinions and move it to a better place, I think everyone would benefit from it.
Yeah, definitely. Could not agree more. So yeah, it's been great, Chris. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Like I say, let's get you back on for part 2 at some point. So Chris Mapp, BMXer, businessman, but most importantly, all around good bloke. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a part of the BMX Commentator podcast.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Okay, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Take care.